The September 20th, 2022 edition of the Rockland Zoning Board of Appeals. Everybody should be aware, if you didn't already see the message, that we are being recorded as we speak. Let's see. Everybody is participating remotely. That would be Mr. Tanzi. That would be myself, Mr. Baker Sr. That would be Mr. Haynes, Mr. Galley, Mr. Baker Jr., and Miss Nicole Clement Gomez, correct? Yeah. All right. I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing. So moved. I got a second?
Second.
I got a second. Roll call. Mr. Tanzi?
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Mr. Baker Sr.?
Yes.
Mr. Haynes?
Yes.
And Mr. Baker Jr.?
Yes.
Roll. Let me read the legal advertisement. Let's see, 7:30 p.m. Remotely conducted continuance public hearing will be held by the Rockland Zoning Board of Appeals on Tuesday, September 20th, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. on the application submitted by Lee Ann King, trustee, Supermom Trust. Leanne, are you here?
Yeah, yes.
Are you wearing a cape like I asked?
I saw that last meeting. My friend sent it to me, but I left my cape. It's in the laundry.
That's all I needed to know. Let's see, 630 630 Summer Street, Rockland, Massachusetts, care of attorney Thomas J. Callahan, 427 Columbia Road, Hanover, Massachusetts, 02339 for a dimensional variance pursuant to section 415-22 building and lot regulations and section 415-89.1 to allow the applicant to add an L-shaped addition to the northeast corner of the existing structure at 630 Summer Street, Rockland, Massachusetts. The property is located in the R2 residence zoning district, section 415-9 of the bylaw, and is further identified as lot 44, map 63 on the Rockland Assessors maps. The owner of the property is Lee Ann King, trustee, Supermom Trust. 630 Summer Street, Rockland, Massachusetts, 02370. The applicant and all interested parties are advised to check the town's website and the zoning board's webpage for additional information. Okay, where do we start? Ms. King, you're here. Let's see. Attorney Callahan, are you going to take the lead on this, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I will.
All right.
All right. Thank you, members of the board. My name is Thomas Callahan, attorney in Hanover. I represent Lee Ann King, and we're before you tonight to seek a variance to add an addition. Do you all have the plan in front of you, or should I put it up on my screen? Or
everybody, do you need the plan on the screen, or are we comfortable? Are we comfortable with just talking?
I'm good.
Everybody's happy. I think it was a small plan that we were good.
Yeah. All right. So it's a small addition, an L-shaped addition off the back of the house, and Ms. King has submitted a letter dated August 10th explaining her need for it. It's to accommodate her son, who was involved in a traffic accident. We are asking for the variance. There is both for the side property line, which has a 15-foot setback, and you'll see from the plan that the addition would be 13.3 feet in the front, 12.6 feet in the back. And then in the back property line, there is a 50-foot setback, and it's 37.7. But what is unique about this property is that Ms. King's fenced-in yard, as shown on the plan, goes much further back than that. And it's been there for over 20 years. If we went to court, we would assert an adverse possession claim, probably succeed on that because it's been fenced in for so long. And in the reality, then, a variance isn't even needed from that rear setback because it would be much further than 50 feet. You can see the measurement from the rear of the existing house is 53.7 to the deeded property line, and it would be much further to the back for the added property. There's already an existing garage that's closer than the setback requires. So the combination of the added land that would be subject to an adverse possession claim and the already another setback, another structure that is much closer to the rear property line. We say that meets the criteria of something unique about this property, and You also have some photographs that were submitted with the application. I could share those if you'd like to see them in color of the rear area where this construction would be. So we're asking for your grant of a variance so that she can get forward with this addition.
Ms. King, would you like to read the letter that you sent in to us? Normally, our clerk would read that, but if you're here,
Sure.
kind of nice to hear from you.
Sure. So, dear board members, I am writing to you regarding my proposed addition at 630 Summer Street, Rockland. I would like to share some family history of my time in Rockland. I bought this house in 1997, my first and my only home. My two children were born and raised in the town of Rockland, where they attended the public schools, participated in the youth sports, and continue to live here today. I have many family members who also reside in Rockland, and I look forward to many more years here. The abutting house located at 636, which is behind my property, was built in 1999. The fence that is located along the back property line between my house and 630 has been there since the 630 Summer Street house was built. It says, please refer to the surveyed plot plan for the fence location. I have maintained the property located inside the fencing for over 20 years, like my attorney had stated. Excuse me. As you can see from the application, I am looking to add on a room with a bathroom in the back side of my property off my existing house. My youngest son was involved in a horrific and serious motorcycle accident in 2018. Luckily, he survived. However, after many years of multiple surgeries, he will continue to have a handicap for the rest of his life that requires him to wear a leg brace and use a walker for mobility. I'm looking to have this added space so that he can continue to live comfortably and have the space he needs to move around in the proposed living area. He also works from home, so it would be added for like an office space for him. Excuse me. We really need this added space to accommodate my son's handicap. The addition plans to be 1 story, very similar to my existing house. The details will follow once the variance can be approved and when we apply for the building permit. It's like I said, it's going to remain to be 1 story. Since I have maintained the fenced in land for over 20 years, like my attorney had said, it could be established that I have ownership due to adverse possession, and therefore the addition will be well within the required rear setback requirements of the town. This addition will allow my family to continue our legacy of being a part of the Rockland community, but more importantly, improve the quality of life for my family. Sincerely, Leanne King.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to open this up to the board members at this point. And voting on this, and we never do this, is full board. It's Mr. Tanzi, myself, Mr. Baker Senior, Mr. Haynes, and Mr. Baker Jr. So I'm going to open this up to the board members. Mr. Tanzi, do you have any questions for the applicant?
The applicant owns the fence, correct?
Yes.
And what year was the fence?
1999.
1999. Okay. The side yard, the setback was on the plan was called out as being 15 feet. Don't they get a 1 foot reduction in the side yard setback for every 10 feet below 110 foot of frontage?
Correct.
So that would bring the side yard setback being 13 point something feet, I would imagine, or somewhere in that area.
Yes, when I originally applied and filled out the application, I was really only looking at the rear property line issue. I'm just looking at the plan now where it does mention the side setback is 15, but I believe you're correct, sir, that we really are within the setback requirements for the side.
That's correct. Mr. Rubel, can I test your knowledge on this?
Yes, good evening, everyone.
This is Mr. Rubel, the zoning board, the zoning enforcement officer, as well as the building inspector for the town.
Yeah, Craig is right on 415-34. It states that, and what we usually do is round it up. So you had 96. We round that right to 100. and then you got your 10 feet over, so you need 14 feet. But if you want to do it in fractions, then do it in fractions, but we usually round it up.
Hmm. So if we fractionalize it, could we get it down to 12.6 somehow?
Do the math.
Foot off.
Is that Mr. Haynes?
That's me doing the math.
Would you get the math?
Would be 1.4.
1 point, it would, okay, so it would end up being the
14 feet.
Yep.
So it's 110, 96,
Yep.
1.4. So it would be 13.6. They're a foot off.
All right, so they would still technically need a 1 foot variance.
Hmm.
Okay, all right. No, just so we're clear. Thank you, Mr. Tanzi, for bringing that up. Did you have anything else to ask for the applicant?
No, that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Tanzi. Mr. Baker Senior?
No, my question was answered.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Haynes?
I don't have any questions. This is one of those cases where I don't know that, I don't know. Our hands are pretty much tied. We have to find conditions being unique, and, we usually call it a hardship. In this case, I'm not sure that we can, I'm not sure what to say about a potential adverse possession. So, yeah, so I'm a bit at a loss, but I don't have any questions about it.
Understood. I hear what you're saying, sir. I'm gonna put this to our associate members. Mr. Galley, talk to me. Do you have any questions or concerns?
Well, I don't have anything more other than to piggyback on what Greg was just saying. I didn't review it enough, but if they need like a foot, can they move the structure in a foot?
It's a bathroom. I mean, it's kind of hard to make a narrower bathroom, at least in terms of the proposed plan.
I just don't know what the arrangement is. Where I don't know where the driveway is and all that. Where they slide it over. I mean, the whole, the left wall and the right wall or whatever it is to get away from the property.
I hear what you're saying.
So I think it's more for handicap ramp and stuff too. ADA ramp.
Not gonna talk about an ADA ramp at this point, because that's all exempt from zoning regardless.
Right, but I'm just saying that if we move it in, it wouldn't meet the requirements.
Okay. All right, Mr. Galley, I appreciate that. Miss Clement Gomez, talk to me. Do you have any questions, concerns?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
All right, appreciate that. All right, let's.
You forgot Mr. Baker Jr.
Oh, Mr. Baker Jr., you're on the bottom of my screen somehow, sir. I apologize. Oh, wow.
And Mr. Baker Senior, that's the story of my life. Just a couple of questions. Just to clarify, and I believe it's already been established, the side setback is short 1 foot.
Yep.
And what is
1.4 feet.
Okay, and how short is the rear setback?
50 minus 30, hold on, 50 minus
1.4.
7.7.
It would be 12.3 short if we're using the deeded property line.
We have to
If
use the deed
We're
property.
using the actual reality.
Sir, Attorney Callahan, the reality is that the rear property line by deed is the rear property line.
All right.
If you guys want to seek an adverse possession claim through the land court, that's a different story. We can't take that into consideration. We cannot. Okay, Mr. Baker Jr., continue with your question.
The discussion just anticipated my next question, so I'm all set. Thank you.
But again, that would be just so everybody's clear, it's a 1.4 side setback on the right that they're asking for, and a 12.3 foot variance on the rear, and a 1.4 foot variance on the left side. So again, my big concern right now is, again, we can't really talk about any kind of adverse possession case. Has nothing to do with this. Absolutely nothing to do with this. If you want, if your client, sir, wants to seek an adverse possession case, that's a completely different story. And that's about it. So I don't want to hear any more about an adverse possession case, or we're maintaining this land or something like that, because adverse possession, as you know, sir, has a lot of criteria that you have to have to adhere to be able to be granted that. So let's not talk about that anymore. What I do want to know is what deficiency to the land would allow this board to grant a variance based on lot shape, topography, or soils. I guess that's my big question.
No, and I understand that, but, you know, and as I said in the application, and I'll say here, you know, I appreciate your comment about the adverse possession, but it's a fact of the reality on the ground that there is more rear yard on this property than the property.
She doesn't own it, but she doesn't own it.
Well, you know, and the other thing, as I cited, is the fact that you already have an existing structure that encroaches far more to the rear setback than than the proposed addition. And I will suggest to you that's unique to the properties around it.
Could we ask Tom a question?
I think
Mr. Rubel's raising his hand, so.
Yeah, again, on the existing garage, that is what we call an accessory structure. That only had to be 5 feet from the rear and side property lines. If it was over 24 feet in height, then it had to be 15 feet from the property line. I don't know how high that garage is, but I'm gonna bet you that they only had to be 5 feet from the rear and side property line.
I think it's a little bit larger than 400 square feet when I looked at the math, but it's still 15 feet off of the property line and still met the criteria for the larger accessory structure.
Yeah, the accessory structures don't meet that 50-foot rear setback. They only need 5 feet.
Or 15. I think for the size of it. Then it's 400 to 600 square feet. It's 15 feet off of each side.
Yeah, and it had to be over 24 feet from ridge.
A quote, a detached accessory structure equal to or greater than 24 feet in height or equal to or greater than 400 square feet may only be erected in the side or rear yard no closer than 15 feet from a side or rear lot line in conformance with the front, So it is greater than 400 square feet, and it can't be any closer than 15. So right now, it's by a 1/10 of a foot. It's missing it on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, but comfortably, I can say that that probably conforms.
Well, not only that, Rob, but when was that amended? That wasn't.
It's true.
Yeah, so I don't think that was that 400 was there when this house was built or the garage was built.
No, I agree with you. There was several amendments to this. This was amended in 2011.
Yeah.
And it was also amended in 2019.
Yeah.
So there was some amendments to it. So if it adhered to the previous zone, the previous zoning bylaw, then that's a different story. So I kind of think that having that, let's say, being closer to the lot line, I think at the time it probably conformed. So it really comes down to what affects the property when it comes, what's the defect of the property when it comes to the lot shape, the topography, or the soils for the lot. Does it meet any of, is there anything about that would allow this board to grant a variance? I guess that's the question. Attorney Callahan, can you speak?
And I'm suggesting to you that the reality of the property on the ground is such that a variance shouldn't be needed because there's more than 50 feet setback in the rear. And if you're compelling her to take a land court action to prove that, I think that's unreasonable.
I'm not compelling her to do anything. I mean,
Well-
you're trying to get a variance based on property that she doesn't own. You know, maybe there's a prescriptive.
Well, I understand what you're saying, and I understand the exacting standard of getting a variance as well.
So based on that,
The reality on the ground, though, is different than the property lines. That's all I'm suggesting.
no, it's not. The
Respectfully,
reality is,
Counsel, Mr. Chairman, may I?
yes, please, Mr. Baker Jr.
Respectfully, Counselor, it's not different. As the chairman already pointed out, this board has zero authority to recognize a non-existent adverse possession. That's the sole province of the land court. On top of that, there is some question based on Geiger, whether the activity that was taking place on that in question land would even satisfy the requirements for adverse possession. So we need to focus on something else that is actual. So I would ask if you could please respond to the chairman's question. Is there anything about this land based on those three aspects that would allow this board to grant the variance?
No, there is not.
So the topography, there's nothing crazy about the topography out there. It's relatively flat.
You have the photographs of the property. It is a relatively flat area. And, again, there is the hardship that's presented, but the hardship is not dictated by the topography.
And I'm just, that's what I'm trying to come up with. I'm trying to come up.
I understand that, and I understand the difficulty in it, and it's difficult to frame this as such, but if, there's realities on the ground. Again, I'm going to keep repeating it, even though I understand what you're saying. There's realities on the ground, and there's the need for it, and that it is not offending the bylaw. It is not, I'm not aware of any opposition to this. And that's what we have.
Okay. I think we're at a standstill, I believe. So unless the board or Mr. Rubel has any questions, I'll open it up to the general public. I don't really see anybody here, but is there anybody out there that wants to speak in favor of this application? I see none. And then is there anybody that wants to speak opposed to the application? And I see none. Mr. Baker Jr., Mr. Baker Sr.
I have a question for the applicant. Is there any way you could put the addition on the other side by the garage?
No,
Okay.
What is going on? What is going on with that side as it comes around the right side of that house? What is going on in that little thing?
so it's off an existing room in the back, a bedroom. So on the left side of the house is where the kitchen is. So I think it would be a little more difficult to put it on the left side, on the driveway side.
Then I agree with you there. But I guess my question is still, why is it bumping out 5.8 feet from that side? What is going on over there?
Oh, on the far right side, you mean?
On the far right.
That's just for the bathroom. Like if we had to put the bathroom off the back, we could, but it was just easier to do the L, just to make it a little more aesthetically pleasing, I guess, that you just bump it off the rear, the way you have the room and then the bathroom off the side. If we had to put the bathroom off the back, we certainly could.
Okay. I think unless the board members have any other questions, I think we can, I think we're good at this point. Mr. Baker Jr., yes.
Yeah, and to the applicant, I think you may have already answered my question, but is there any way that the plan could be redone to accommodate the setback limitations?
Where it would be within the 50 feet?
Or with it, whatever the requirements are?
The 50 feet will never happen.
Right.
Right, it would be 3 feet off the house if it
Right.
The existing house is 53.7 from that rear deeded property line. So you'd be looking at a 3 foot deep addition, and
Okay.
that doesn't.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That definitely wouldn't happen. So again, in that little 5.8 foot bump out section, that's a bathroom area. Because again, I haven't seen like a floor plan, so I don't know.
Yeah, that would be the bathroom, but we could put it off the back if the back setback gets approved. If you're worried about the side setback, for sure. It's all about the space in the back for the room.
No, it's understood. All right, let me do this because I think we're all at the same. I think we're all in the same place here. All right, let me go to my cheat sheet here. I'm going to be looking off to another screen here real quick. Okay, I hear no. Any remaining questions for the board? Are there any more questions remaining from the board? Hearing none, I'd like to close the open portion of this meeting. I'd like I guess I need a motion to close the open
Motion
portion.
to close the public hearing.
Need a second?
Second,
I got a second. Roll call. Mr. Baker, Senior.
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Mr. Haynes,
yes.
Mr. Baker Jr.,
Yes.
and Mr. Tanzi.
Yes.
All right. All right, Ms. King, the board will deliberate tonight and you are welcome to stay. You will receive a decision in the mail with a date stamp. 21 days from the date stamp on the decision, go to the town clerk's office, request a certificate of no appeal. If no one has appealed, the town clerk will give you a certification and a copy of the original decision. Take those to the registry of deeds and have them recorded. One of the conditions is always to show the building department proof of recording. So we're gonna let this go for right now. Again, we are gonna talk about this. We're gonna decide tonight and we'll go from there. Sound good?
Sure.
All right.
Thank you.
Not a
Thank you.
problem. Sit tight and let's see, we're on to, at this point, we're on to discussion items. All right. We're gonna have a discussion. I'm just gonna read this directly from the agenda. We're gonna have a discussion and potential vote to determine if a change of hours is a minor modification to the special permit and to approve as a minor modification, a change of hours per letter request dated August 17, 2022 from Michael Westort of Health Circle Inc., 21 Commerce Drive, Rockland, Massachusetts, 02370. Okay, so the first question, and I kind of made Deb do this. The question is a change of hours considered a minor modification? Anybody want to voice an opinion on that?
How many hours are they looking?
Based
Hours
on
a night or 2 hours?
based on what I'm seeing right now, the current hours for the medical are 10 to 8. That's daily. The recreational is 10 to 9 daily. That's Monday through Friday. What he wants to do is 9 to 9, Monday through Saturday, and 9 to 8 on Sunday. That's medical. Recreational, 9 to 9, Monday through Saturday, and 9 to 8 only on Sundays. Yeah, he's opening, and what he wants to do for medical, he wants to open an hour earlier and close an hour later. And then on Sundays, he wants to open an hour earlier and close an hour earlier. Am I reading that right? No, and close at the same time. So he wants to open an hour earlier, Monday through Sunday. He wants to close an hour later, Monday through Saturday, and he wants to keep 8 a.m. on Sunday. That's medical. And then for recreational, again, it's 10. And again, he wants 9 to 9. He wants the same hours, 9 to 9. And then on Sundays, 9 to 8. So it's an hour earlier, Monday through Sunday. It's an hour later, Monday through Saturday, and it's the same closing on Sunday.
We're gonna make them match the other establishments?
At this point, I know we keep talking about we need to keep, we need to keep staples here. We need to keep kind of everything, on the same page. At this point, when it comes to the recreational, we make our, we're the ones that make the judgment on it. And it's been stated before, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Haynes, if the applicant is asking for something specific, why not give it to them?
So that's my perspective on things. I also believe in the consistency.
Mhm.
So of course I went back and I went through all of our previous hearings to make sure I understood what we had decided on the different ones.
Rob, before we get too far into this, we should make a determination if this is a minor
Yeah,
modification.
And that's why I wanted to start that way. And just, I'm gonna throw it out there. And I would entertain a motion at this point.
I'll make the motion that this is a minor modification
So-
to their January, what date was it? January 7th, 2020.
All right, before I take a second, I see Mr. Galley raising his hand.
I'm just curious, do you mind explaining briefly what the difference between a minor modification is? And I mean,
This is gonna be, this is why I'm bringing this up to the board, because there's a bunch of different ways to look at this.
Yeah.
Because the board makes the decision, let's say on the recreation, all right, the board makes the decision on this. Let's say he wanted to open at 4 a.m.
Mhm.
That's a major, because that changes a whole bunch of stuff. But in the grand scheme of things, he's only asking for an hour early. All right, and an hour later, except for on Sundays. That's not, I don't necessarily see that so bad. A major modification, if he was required to, let's say if he was required to have 13 parking spaces and he only wanted to put in 10, that's a major modification because he's dealing with required parking. So
Put a second floor on.
So does that change the voting requirements or?
public notice. I think I think we have to get to the heart of the matter, which is public notice of the meeting, public comment.
Yep.
And whether we're going to do that as an agenda item where the public can comment. And I, for one, would propose that even something like a change of hours is worthy of public comment. So when we set and reset, I think the public is the issue of dispensaries and alcohol use, things, I think when they're doing licensing, I think most of these things are still in public meetings. And so I would venture, at least my thoughts is that it's worth public input, at least doing it in that setting.
I think I agree with Tim's opinion that this seems like something that maybe ought to be available for public comment.
Baker Jr., I saw you raising your hand, sir.
Now I'm agreeing with Mr. Haynes and Mr. Galley. I think it should be put out as an agenda item, subject to public comment, subject to hearing, rather than deal with it as a minor matter on an informal basis. I think that just invites difficulties down the road. So if we can decide in as transparent a manner as possible why we're doing what we're doing, I think that would be beneficial to the town, as well as to the applicant and the other folks who are so allowed to conduct their business in the town.
Okay, and again, myself, I can go either way on this. But I guess my question to that end is this decision, or is this possible motion to be made only because this has to do with an adult use situation? If this was a bookstore, would this have anything to do with it?
No, at least not from my perspective, no.
Okay, so
we don't set hours for bookstores.
I got one more comment.
But for something else that might, in the normal course, be considered a minor alteration, I think, again, the more we decide in public view with public notice and the opportunity for public comment, regardless of the nature of the business or the nature of the proposal. I think that we're doing the things the way that we're supposed to.
If the board had, and again, I'm trying to make this a staple for, going forward. So when it comes right down to it, if based on the zoning bylaw, the zoning board has the duty of approving the hours that a specific business is going to be open, regardless of that business, that should be considered not a minor modification and should come to the board as a hearing, not just a meeting, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so, and that's just so I understand, Mr. Galley, I see you raising your answer.
I was gonna say, in the spirit of everything we've been saying, yeah, changing the hours, I think, to be like we just said, open to public comment. Because they're looking for hours outside approved hours for identical businesses, equal businesses. If they wanted to make them their hours to change what's been approved recently for everyone else in the last year, I would think it would be reasonable to make that a minor modification, because other establishments already have it in the town doing the same business. But where they want to expand their hours, people have opinions and feelings about that.
Okay.
And I just want to say that if they were asking for the same hours as, 1015 Hingham Street and 2 Buds and everything, to me, that would be minor modification, because all we're doing is putting them on an equal playing field.
Okay.
For broader hours.
Yeah.
And people might have opinions about that.
Mr. Rubel, I see you raising your hand, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, did anybody get to look at the Rockland Police Department letter that was sent in regards to the change of hours?
Ooh, no,
Yeah.
but,
If you look at that letter, it does not match what you had just said earlier about the Monday through Saturday and Sundays.
Oh, really?
I don't, unless I missed it, I don't even believe Saturday is referenced in the letter.
That's right.
Oh, really?
Right.
Okay.
It is-
It's not-
I think we may need another letter from the PD.
All right. Deb, was that put up on the website?
It was in the email package.
Says it all been uploaded.
It's on the website.
Would you like me to read it?
Yeah, if you got, and if you
I
got it
have
in
it.
front of you.
It was dated July 28th, 2022, Town of Rockland Zoning Board regarding healthcare change in hours. I am writing in regards to the status of the healthcare 21 Commerce Road in Rockland to date. There has not been any issues with the parking in and around the facility at all. Also, I am not aware of any significant calls for services at the facility. With this being said, Health Circle has been and remains in good standards with our department. And for that reason, we have no objections to the request to extend their hours of operation to 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Sunday. Thank you in anticipation, Lieutenant Nick Zioli.
Yeah, that's something different. It still comes down, it's that we would need to use towards making the decision. Still comes down to the thing that under the discussion, we have to decide as to whether this would be considered a minor modification or not. Mr. Tanzi, I see you were raising your hand.
Yeah, well, this facility, if we granted this under a minor modification, wouldn't we be given this dispensary better hours than other dispensaries?
Tim, can you answer that? I know you said you went through and looked at the other hours.
Yes, they were asking for the same hours, 9 to 9, 6 days a week, but we're asking for 9 to 8. So it's an hour earlier and an hour later than we've recently granted to 2 Buds and 1015. The Canavana is open a little later in the morning. They're 10 to 9, 6 days a week. But they're open a half an hour later on Sundays. So they're 10 to 7:30. So it's not exactly, so in any case, the Sunday hours would be somewhat better.
Yeah, it's not identical.
No, it's, I mean, you could make an argument that they're comparable, but, you know, such a business probably, you know, maybe our bylaw should be changed and just set, you know, a reasonable set of hours, and each establishment can choose to, you know, remain open for those set hours, or if they want to close a half hour earlier or open a half hour later, you know, that would be their choice. You know, I don't think it's a major change for the business, but I think from a competition standpoint, it could be considered a major change. I mean, I'm sure there are other dispensaries in town that are watching this video very closely and are probably wondering, does their competitor have an advantage over us if we, you know, grant this request? That's my concern. I don't care about, you know what I mean?
Talk about granting anything. We're still trying. The decision is at this point is a change to hours a minor modification or not. That's what we have to decide. And it really can't be specific to this business. It has to be, you know,
I think we're struggling because we don't really have a great definition of minor modification or what its implications are. When I went back and looked at the agenda, and it's listed as a discussion item and potential vote. So to me, that is that's public notice that it's going to happen. It might meet our criteria that the public be able to comment on it if discussion items are open to public comment. But I without Galvin or without knowing what that actually means with implication, I'm not sure that we're in a position to really answer the question of minor modification. I couldn't find anything in our bylaw that really defines what it is and what it means, as opposed to a major modification, which is maybe rewriting a whole set of new conditions and refiling it, and you know, in the public record, and you know, so this might be considered a minor modification, and we might be okay with it, but unless somebody can tell us what that really means.
What an actual definition of a minor modification. Mr. Baker Jr., our resident attorney, what do you say, sir?
I think, Mr. Chairman, given that we're having a fairly extensive and really meaningful discussion on minor versus major, is probably, at least from my perspective, a way of looking at it that perhaps this should not be dealt with as minor, because we are not certain among ourselves as to how it should be addressed. And if we're not certain about it, I think anyone looking at the agenda and wondering what might be happening with this item tonight probably is even more uncertain. So I think if we're out front saying this is the process that we're going to use to address this and similar requests, I think that's better all around.
I always understood, Attorney Galvin used to always say, minor modifications can be changed by Tom and are delegated to Tom. And I think from my perspective, this is a matter for the board, unless as a board we decide Tom can change anybody's hours within a certain parameter as a minor modification. And I think that would go to what Stephen was saying, where we just say, like, as long as it's, you know, open no later, you know, like closes no later than 9 o'clock and opens no earlier than 8 o'clock any day of the week, they can have whatever hours they want by minor modification, you know, by going to Tom.
As the zoning enforcement officer, Mr. Rubel, can I get your opinion on any of this?
Yeah, I believe at this state where we stand right now, we should have a meeting, a public meeting on it. I don't think we got a chance with, I mean, you can check with council, but I think Robert Jr. I hit the nail on the head. We should go with a public meeting.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. All
Mr.
right.
Chair,
Yes, Mr. Baker Senior.
after hearing my fellow members, I believe I may have made a mistake on making that motion. And I would like to rescind that and make another motion to have a public hearing for the request of hour changing for Health Circle at our next available date.
All right, before I hear a second on that, I got a raising hand here. I'm surprised I actually let him stay here because he only put his initials on the board. Usually we require full names. Mr. Westort, you raised your hand, you wanted to talk, sir.
Yeah, okay, a couple quick things. One, I put in for a full meeting and then I was told that we didn't need one because it was minor. So I get that you guys are deliberating and there's some questions about it. So right now, other dispensaries have different hours than I do that you have approved already. So when you talk about a disadvantage, I'm already at a disadvantage. So can I at least get for recreational the same hours they have? That would be a minor modification. You're just giving me what 1015 has and what Canavana has right now. I'll come back for the full meeting because it's really medical that's changing a lot. If recreational isn't really changing, I'm just getting the same hour that they did. They're opening at 9. I want to open at 9. That was it. Like, so recreational, I don't think it's 1 hour. You've already granted multiple permits to open at 9. I'm just saying, can I have the same thing?
Tim, does that sound right? When it comes to the recreational, he just wants to open an hour earlier.
And I'll come back for medical.
So I think the issue here is I don't know that anyone has any issues with the hours. I think we have an issue with the process. So I think that it just has to be, I think we have to have an agenda item at a public hearing so that we can vote on it in a public way and have any public comments.
I think what the applicant is suggesting is that we allow one incremental change and then hold off on another incremental change.
Correct.
I agree with that. And, you
Let's-
know, I think one business owner should have be allowed the same hours as the next business owner.
And in turn, I think that could be considered a minor change.
I agree.
If all we're doing is allowing him to match what's already out there specifically for this recreational end of it, that I think could be considered a minor change. To change the whole thing, you know, when it comes to the medical, and again, if we're kind of hovering between, you know, making a decision about minor versus major modifications and the hours that he's requiring or requesting. When it comes to the medical, we're stuck with what the bylaw says when it comes to the medical. The medical is very, very specific. You can't be, when it comes to the medical, you can't be open past 8 p.m. or before 8 a.m. So I mean, that's the bylaw. We can't change that without a public, you know, without going to town meeting. So that can't change. But again, you're still not, you're 9 to 9. You know, you're requesting 9 to 9. So I mean, we couldn't do anything. We couldn't do anything about the 9 o'clock on the medical anyway. The earlier we probably could, but the later we couldn't. Not without an actual zoning change. But
I'm comfortable with that. Let's table the medical because that we can't change anyways. I'll just come back to whatever the bylaw is for the 8 a.m. on medical, switch that. So no big deal. If I could just get what everybody else has as a minor change, like you're just basically adding it. I can open at 9 instead of 10 is from what I take from it, where our hours the same as everybody else. Their hours are already 9 to 9. Mine aren't. So I'm just saying, can I have the same?
So if we looked at it, if we're looking at it specifically here, specifically for this one, when we look at the medical, you would be asking to open,
No, skip the medical. We'll table the medical.
okay, table the medical, so just the recreational, you're
Yep.
requesting 9 to 9 and 9 to 8 on Sundays, which is supposedly, and Tim, just correct me if I'm wrong, that's identical to what we did for 1015 Hingham Street, correct?
It's 9 to 9, Monday through Saturday. Yep, and 10 to 7 on Sundays.
Okay,
we just did the rest.
All right, so 1015 does 10 to 7 on Sundays.
10:15, and we changed the 2 buds to that one as well.
Okay.
10 to
But the
7.
Canavana goes to 7:30. I don't, that's fine.
Yeah, they're 10 to 7:30. So,
Okay.
so again, I honestly have no problem with the hours. You know, I'm the one who's like, open whatever hours you want. That's not my position on the board. My position is we don't know what a minor modification actually is. So the question, what's on the actual agenda to the public is, we're supposed to vote on whether this is a minor modification, whatever that may be, in this undefined thing that we're supposed to find. And then we're supposed to find that the change of hours is that. And so unless somebody can tell us if this, like, is this, like, how is that question on, I don't even know why that's on the agenda and what it means. So we're missing a key piece of understanding in order to have a finding. At least I am.
Again, from a very simple standpoint, is a change of hours a minor modification?
So I'm Googling this as we speak. And
Oh, please, no, this is why I like Zoom, because we all have this, right at our fingertips.
A minor modification means changes which do not require public notice and hearing prior to implementation, but which do require administrative approval. And when in my past life, when I've gotten a special permit for a house, and then we decide we're going to change a window on an elevation, we go back and we don't have to have a public hearing about this, like a change to a facade or something in the plan that might, and they actually just take it out of the public hearing part. So I think when we say something is a minor modification, we are actually saying it does not require a public hearing and a meeting. And so from my perspective, I think a change of hours should be done in a public hearing, and in an open forum and not administratively. But that's my position.
I got a question though, but I'm not asking for any extra hours. I'm just asking what you've already approved in public hearings 3 times over, which I'm just trying to get to the same competitive advantage that we talked about before. Just give me the same playing field. I'm fine with it. I'll come back if I so decide for a major change of different hours than you've already approved 3 times before.
I think we should do that in a public. We can't change. I don't think we can change somebody's hours, even yours, without having a public hearing.
Let me do this. I got everybody asking. Mr. Baker Jr., I saw you up first, and then I saw Mr. Galley.
Yeah, I don't know whether we haven't made, at least I haven't made myself clear what my feeling is. We're not talking right now about the merits of the applicant's request.
Right.
We're talking about the process by which those merits should be addressed. I mean, it's almost to the point now, if I'm following Mr. Westdorf's logic, and if I'm not, please let me know. But an hour is a minor change, but an hour and a half isn't.
No, my logic.
No, please let me finish.
Oh, okay.
Again, my concern is with the process, and I think, and I know I'm being redundant, but since we're having this discussion, we should follow the more well-considered public process that Mr. Haynes has suggested and that I've suggested. And I've heard nothing yet from the applicant that would dissuade me from that position.
Yeah, Mr. Galley, I saw you raise your hand before Mr. Tanzi did.
Yes, so I'm just thinking, I know the conversation is really about the process.
That's what it is about, yes.
Yes, yeah, I'm saying, yeah, I know, even though we're talking in the like I said, with the issue, but the applicant has expressed flexibility in the request. And my question is about the process, where we expressed the idea that if he asked for something that's big, let's say bigger,
Mhm.
say, well, everyone's got something that's slightly smaller. We can give you that slightly smaller, which is less than what you're asking for. Could we, in this context, approve that? Could we say motion to approve the hours to match, 1015 Hingham Street, even though that's slightly less than what he asked for, even though he didn't ask for that specifically? We seem to give those kind of approvals for other applicants where we say, you can do that. We just want, like we approved an extension to a building that was slightly smaller than what they asked for, but still, it was more than what they had. So would we be able to approve in the process the hours that duplicate the range of open potential hours that duplicate everyone that we've approved the last couple of weeks, even though it's shorter hours than what he just asked for in the formal document from August 17th? If I made that clear, I don't know.
So with that comment, I'm gonna go to Mr. Tanzi at this point. I hear what you're saying, Mr. Galley. I do hear what you're saying.
And Mr. Chairman, I think the board, when it granted other establishments later hours than the applicants, I think we really missed it. We should have kept everybody's hours the same. And we set those hours without the need of a public hearing. We set those hours based on what we felt was reasonable. And if the applicant was requesting to stay open later than what his competitors are doing, I would say that would be a major modification. But he's not asking that. He's asking for a level playing field. I think he's entitled to a level playing field. And I think asking to be open at the same hours as his competitors, I think that's a minor modification. I mean, those are the hours, he's asking for the hours that we set for his competitors without the need for a public hearing. I think we owe it to him to do the same.
Can I interject real quick? This is a text message that I've been going back and forth with Attorney Galvin.
Oh, good.
I sent to him, change of hours, is that a minor modification? He says, yes. Even for Health Circle. He says, yes.
Yay!
I don't know what, and again, I'll show you my text messages. I even spelled the word change wrong. So, and he's coming back and saying that a change of hours is not a major modification.
He's saying he's saying we can do it administratively.
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
So,
and again, I started this.
I want to back up what Greg said. Though we did discuss those. We discussed those hours in a public, in an open public hearing. When I told you I went back and I looked to see what we were talking about. In both of the most recent hearings, we said we really should approve Health Circles. Like when he comes back and writes us a letter and says he wants to change his hours, we actually said that in both of the last meetings in the public hearing. So if Mike is I can't read Westort, Mr. Westort is amenable to having the same hours, the 9 to 9 plus the 10 to 7 that we just had in our last two meetings, and Attorney Galvin says it's a minor, I'd like to make a motion that we that we approve the change in hours to 9 to 9 Monday through Saturday and 10 to 7 on Sundays.
All right, and
Second.
consider this an administrative approval,
It would under, right, under a minor modification.
under a minor modification.
Just point of order, Mr. Chairman, that's for
Yes, sir.
recreational sales, correct?
That's recreational sales.
Recreational sales. All right, so we have that. Everybody, and again, I'm not even gonna go for a vote on this. I'm just gonna say, does anybody disagree with Mr. Haynes at this point?
Yeah.
No, everybody's good?
Mhm.
Miss Clement Gomez, I'm coming to you. You've been very, very silent. I want to hear your voice. What do you think here? Are we doing the right thing?
Yeah, I definitely think that we should essentially make everybody have the opportunity to have the same hours, right? And if they want to change outside of those hours, that could be a major modification. But right now, I think we should kind of just set the standard that these are the hours. If you want to open during those hours, great. If you don't, that's your personal decision. So.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Mr. Rubel, are you okay with this? Okay, all right, then.
Rob,
Yeah.
I think we should, just to be on the safe side, take a roll call vote. Because
Fine, I can do it. I
if
can do that.
someone else looks at this and says, well, they didn't even make a vote on it.
That's fine. I mean, again, at a hearing like that, at a meeting like this, we don't necessarily have to, so, but to satisfy that.
It's in the agenda.
Exactly.
Mr.
Technical
Haynes,
vote.
So
Mr.
I have,
Haynes.
well, hold on.
Motion, never seconded.
I got a motion from Mr. Haynes. We got a second from Mr. Tanzi. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, roll call. Mr. Baker Senior,
Yes,
myself is a yes. Mr. Haynes,
Yes.
Mr. Tanzi,
Yes.
and Mr. Baker Junior.
Yes.
All right, that's taking care of it. Well, I'll tell you this, when it comes to the medical, you got to adhere to the zoning bylaw. That's we've got no choice on that one. We can't do that. Although, I think, Deb, that's on our list to talk about. Okay, all right. So that takes care of that. Is there anything else to deal with at this point?
Thank you.
Not a problem, Michael. We'll talk to you. We'll talk to you again. All right, so we got that. That's taken care of. All right. So before we talk about minutes or anything else like that, let's talk about Summer Street. All right. Summer Street.
These are the ones that these make me crazy, because if this house if this house was pre-existing non-conforming and we were talking about not making it substantially, detrimental, standards would be so different. So it breaks my heart that I think our hands are tied.
Yeah, it meets at this point. Everything meets the bylaw. That's the killer.
It's actually punished for me, like it meeting all the criteria.
Rob, could the size of the lot be be considered to grant the variance?
Size, no. It would be shape. And the
Okay.
fact that I can put this out there, the fact that it's not, let's say it that way.
So we had a similar one, remember, that was like a pie shape.
Yeah.
It was the only pie shape in the neighborhood.
Yep.
And, so we see these in other cases, but it's just the house complies in every way. And
Yeah.
God,
And again, it's
Frustrating.
not, it's a parallelogram. It's not a rectangle. It's not a rectangle or a square. And if the lot itself was a little bit more square, even with the deficient frontage, you'd probably make that 12.6 would end up being that 14 or whatever, the 13 point whatever that we needed. It's can I look at it that way? Can you look at it that way for the side setback? Kind of, but on the flip side, we've already been told that that side can get modified. So that's not an issue. It's more the rear addition. It's more the rear addition. But the other thing that I'm looking at is that This is a single story. Why can't they go up?
Well, they're accommodating, somebody with, different abilities, and stairs, we're not, stairs themselves are an issue.
True, but that doesn't mean that the bedroom situation has to change. You can put one of the bedrooms upstairs. You can put a second bathroom upstairs. So when it comes right down to it, and again, I'm not going to say handicap. I'm going to say the challenged member of the family can still be housed on that first floor, even if you went up just a second floor. Even if it was only on half the house, you know what I mean? It just really depends on what is going to be, what that addition is actually going to be composed of, which it sounds like it's going to be a bathroom and a bedroom.
Yeah.
So you could easily add and Mr. Rubel, I'm assuming you've seen this house before. And is this something where they could add a bathroom and a bedroom on the second floor?
I don't believe I've seen this house before.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's the way that I'm looking at it. I mean, you could literally put a second floor on this. It sounds like, and again, I haven't seen the pictures, but I can go to Google Earth. We have the technology.
It's a raised ranch, so they could do it. Yeah.
So the bottom line is that there's 5 conditions that have to be met. And I'm just going to read them quickly for the board members. And
please, sir.
Really what it comes down to, we have to find conditions and circumstances are unique to the applicant's lot, structure, and building and do not apply to neighboring lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. We also have to find that the strict application of the provisions of this bylaw would deprive the applicant of reasonable use of the lot, structure, or building in a manner equivalent to the use permitted to be made by other owners of the neighborhood lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. The unique conditions and circumstances are not the result of actions of the applicant taken subsequent to the adoption of this bylaw. Relief, if approved, will not cause substantial detriment to the public good or impair the purposes and intent of the bylaw. And finally, the last one is relief, if approved, will not constitute a grant of special privilege inconsistent with the limitations on other properties in the district. And I don't know, when I consider the findings, and we have to find all of those to be true, to be present. And I feel like my hands are tied. I don't think that we can actually make those findings.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And it's just it's a ranch.
Yeah. What, if I may speak?
Yes, Mr. Candy. Yeah, no, I said yes, please do.
The 50-foot setback, rear yard setback, was that in effect when this lot was created? I mean, it's a 10,000 square foot lot. And I mean, oftentimes we've had people come in and ask for variances, and the box for the building envelope is contained completely inside the existing dwelling, just because it was an old lot that predated the setback. I think that 50-foot setback was instituted when we went to the larger lot sizes. It really doesn't, I mean, a 50-foot rear yard setback really does not offer a homeowner much flexibility at all. I mean, I just make that comment.
No, I agree with you there. And then the only other thing that I'm potentially looking at is with that ground addition, that might be more than what the max building coverage would allow in the zone.
I did the math on that earlier, and it's below that. It was like 3,200 square feet. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it was in the 2200s.
All right, as long as it's below that, then I can see that. All right.
Bob, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
If this is, if we do not grant this variance, how long before the applicant could come back with a different set of plans and a potential variance for the rear setback?
Strictly just for the rear setback?
Yes. If she got it redrawn and took the 5.8 feet off the side and had her architect move the room around a little bit or something.
It comes down to if we were to deny this variance without prejudice, she can come back next week.
Okay.
All right, so that's one thing. The other way to do it potentially, if it's one of those situations where it just feels like one of those situations where if we modify, if the plans were modified to take away one of the variances, then we could look at the other one and be it's kind of a tit for tat situation. We've looked at variances like this before. If you eliminate one of the variances, then we can look at the other one and maybe we can come to terms with that. So if that's the case, we could potentially deny the side setback, but approve the rear setback. And
Not quite sure how, I don't know how that works. Could you maybe talk about how would we make those findings for the rear setback in particular?
yeah, no, I understand. I'm trying here. I'm trying desperately here.
That's what I say. We get to do that when there's a violation. It's so unfair.
Wow.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
The only way that this, I mean, I don't see the point of entertaining a variance for the backyard setback, the rear yard setback only. A variance is a variance.
Mhm.
But there is something unique with this lot pertaining specifically to this applicant. The applicant is seeking this relief because of a unique situation in connection with the physically challenged occupant. He needs an accessible bedroom. He needs a showering and facility. He needs a bathroom to live. He can't negotiate stairs. If that uniqueness was not on the table, I would say like what you said, just go up and conform. A nonconformity is a nonconformity. If you take the nonconformity off the side yard, you're going to increase it in the back. I think they've done probably about the best. I think the best fit for a balance of nonconformity. I mean, from the standpoint looking at it from the side yard, I mean, the visual impact from the street is minimal. In fact, you got a fence that if you took it to the fence, you'd have a conforming structure.
Talk about it.
I understand that. From a visual standpoint, from an impact standpoint, it is a factor that can be considered. again, if there wasn't, if it wasn't a matter of somebody who absolutely needed this type of configuration, I would just say go up. I'm not a fan of granting variances. I think you all know that, but I think you can make a case for a uniqueness of lot shape, the land, the bylaws that and the setbacks that existed when this house was built, when the lot was created, and so forth. So that's my input.
All right. Anybody else? Nicole, you want to say something, please?
Yeah, I would say that this case is pretty unique, and unfortunately they cannot build up. So I bet they've done the best that they've could to try to plan something that works and at their home. And I don't think I know this would be a variance, but it might be needed, just for this particular case.
I'm just playing with my Google Earth, see what I can come up with. I'm trying to figure out if they can or if they can or can't go up. Because I know several houses that are identical to this, and they went up. They went up a floor and just made bedroom access, bedroom space upstairs. It is feasibly possible to still keep the a bedroom, bathroom, and everything on that portion. So I don't know how that works, but it does look like they could go up a floor. I don't know what to do here, guys.
It doesn't change our findings situation so far, but I'm struggling a little bit here because do we have any provisions in the special permitting for an accessory apartment that would give us some flexibility on the setback? I always had trouble on the spot finding it, but I wanted to just see if anybody knew, if we made it an accessory apartment. I know they're permitted by right in this district.
Yep.
But I just don't know if we made it an accessory apartment, if we could meet the definition, if we would have, if we could propose maybe a way to get there using the accessory apartment guidelines instead of a variance, and then that would put us into special permit, and maybe we'd have a little more flexibility.
Mr. Vogel, do you hear where he's good? Do you hear where Mr. Haynes is going?
I believe on the accessory apartments, you still got to meet the setbacks.
Okay.
It's attached.
What I'm suggesting is that if it's because the accessory apartments are by special permit, we might not have to meet all the findings of a variance, and we might be able to apply a different standard because under the special permit, we just have to make it not substantially more detrimental. And then we might be able to say, oh, they already have a garage back there. And so this addition isn't going to be substantially more detrimental in this particular case. It's just a different finding. If we could figure out a way to make it fit under, anyway, just a thought.
I hear where he's going, Mr. Vogel. Do you kind of hear where he's going?
I hear where he's going, but I don't think there's nothing in the accessory apartment that allows us to get away from those setbacks.
Okay, so we would still have to have those findings satisfied.
Yeah, and the section 6 finding, you can use a section 6 finding here now. You use it the same on the accessory apartment.
Well, we can't, for a variance, we have to have the findings of the variance. Like it has to have all of those criteria. But if we apply as a special permit, the request to have a dimensional to not comply with the zoning goes under the qualification of, is it not substantially more detrimental, as opposed to, like, is there a hardship?
Yeah, but I don't think an accessory apartment allows you to not have a setback on the side setback or rear setback.
Correct. They would have to ask for a waiver,
That's
as
right.
opposed, like, let's call that a waiver as opposed to a variance. Just from what our findings have to be here.
Is that really? Is that what it says? Is that what it says in there? A waiver versus they're requesting a waiver? If we
Well,
go
I'm calling it that just to sort of separate how we look at special permits
Yeah.
versus how we look at variances.
The only thing is, this was asking for variance, it's not a special
Right.
permit.
Oh, yeah.
So she would really have to advertise it and everything.
Oh, yeah. It would have to meet, there are other criteria here.
Right.
The square footages but it might be a way for the applicant to, to put it before the board, because I'm saying, quite frankly, I can't get to those findings. I might be alone on the board when we take a vote, but I don't see how we can, grant a variance under the requirements of the findings we have.
Mr. Chair, may I ask another question?
No, because we've already closed the open portion of the meeting.
No, I'm not offering any new evidence. It's just we're speculating on alternatives. Going up, accessory dwelling. What if it was, you don't have to answer this, the building inspector doesn't have to answer this instance, but what if connecting to the existing garage and incorporating the garage as the addition?
And you'd have to ask for a variance on the garage.
Well, it's existing.
Doesn't matter. If you connect it, then it has to adhere to the 50-foot rear zoning.
Yeah.
Answers the question. Thank you.
You know, what really answers the question is, this is directed to the board members. What really answers the question is, if that extra land was taken under adverse possession, they wouldn't need to be here. I mean, that's the other portion of it, and that's a crapshoot, unfortunately, because I can't, without knowing the whole circumstances, I have no idea if they'd even come close to meeting the criteria for adverse possession.
That could take years in court too.
Exactly. And I'm assuming that everybody wants this satisfied ASAP.
I have, Mr. Chairman, I got adverse possession where I am right now, and that took me 3 years to get it.
Yes, I remember that. We talked about that. I'm just trying to go over I found the accessory apartment within single family dwelling. It's 415-32. Accessory shall contain a minimum of 62, minimum of that, maximum of that. The accessory located in only within the existing habitable structure. So that's not going to happen.
It can be in an addition.
Increase the size of the main dwelling shall be limited to 5% of the existing habitable living space of the dwelling and shall meet all zoning requirements. That's letter I. On terms of due, no later than that, permitted by right, shall be subject to and conditioned only upon the following: adherence to the provisions of the existing provisions and increasing the size of the main dwelling. Shall meet all yard setback requirements. Say even they're going by accessory apartments permitted by right. They even went down to the R2, R3, and R4. Shall be subject to and conditioned on the following: adherence to the provisions. The right to maintain an accessory apartment by right shall terminate. It's the same. Yep. No later than that. The building inspector. Yeah. I don't know what to do here. It doesn't meet the criteria for a variance. It absolutely does not. So,
Or a special permit.
or a special permit at this point. So at this point, as chairman, I'm going to step back and I'm going to say that I would entertain a motion of any sort.
I'm going to make a motion that we deny the variance as applied,
As applied.
without prejudice.
Without prejudice. Thank you, sir. I got that. I got a motion. I would entertain a second on that. Nobody wants a second on. Oh,
Second,
we got a second on that. Got a roll call. Before I make the roll call, does anybody want to say anything?
just on the motion, where the motion is to deny without prejudice. I believe you said that would allow the applicant to come back ASAP with something different, something else, whatever.
Yeah, if we didn't say that, it would be different. It would be assumed with prejudice, but we're saying without prejudice. So if there's a change to it, they can come back virtually instantaneously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No, thank you, Mr. Baker Jr. I've got a motion. I've got a second. Any more discussion? I'll do a roll call at this point. Mr. Baker Senior,
Yes.
myself is a yes. Mr. Haynes,
Yes.
Mr. Tanzi.
No,
Whoa, I like that. Thank you, sir. And Mr. Baker Jr.
Yes.
Okay, it's a 4-1 that the motion passes, the variance do not.
I like that Greg always votes with his heart.
And they caught it, no, and I get it. I absolutely get it. Believe me, I got caught on one not too long ago. All right, so we've got that. We'll have everything put together ASAP. Miss King, where'd you go? Right there you are. You know what it means without prejudice? You know what that means? Okay, that means that if we come back with a slightly modified plan quickly. All right, normally if we didn't say that, it would be assumed that it's with prejudice, meaning that you couldn't come back for 2 years. But at this point, if you got something that you want to try it slightly differently, you can come back almost instantaneously. You would need to modify the plans, reapply, and we can try this again.
Okay.
All right, board members, what do we got left here?
Thank you to the board for your attention to this and your debate.
Thank you, Attorney Callahan. All right, what do we got left? Discussion items, we took care of that. Non-deliberative announcements. Deb, we got anything to talk about?
No.
All right, got nothing to talk about. Approval of minutes. Let me just bring them back up here.
I have none.
I thought we had minutes to talk about.
No, I haven't heard back from Attorney Galvin yet.
All right, and that's and just so
Adjourn.
hold on, just so the board members know this, we're always gonna, at this point, and I think Deb, we're on agreement here. We're not gonna do anything until we hear back from Attorney Galvin when it comes to minutes. He needs to at least get his eyes on them and see if there's any changes that he needs to make. So until that happens, we're not doing minutes. They're not going to get published. They're not going to get sent out to the board for review. Is everybody okay with that?
Yep.
All right, I kind of figured that, but I just want to make sure everybody knew. All right, I got a motion to adjourn. I got one.
Second.
I got a second. Roll call, Mr. Baker Senior.
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Mr. Haynes.
Yeah.
Mr. Tanzi.
yes.
Mr. Baker Jr.
Yes.
Get out of here, people. Thank you for coming.